For more than a quarter of a century, they were the absolute bedrock of Japanese politics, just unshakable. But in a move that has sent, well, shockwaves through the nation, one of the world's most stable political alliances has just completely fallen apart. So yeah, let's dive into this political earthquake.
And really, it all boils down to this one powerful feeling. This wasn't some decision made in a quiet room by politicians. This was a cry coming from the grassroots, a sense that things just couldn't go on like this. This quote, it just perfectly captures the frustration that finally broke the dam. Just let that number sink in for a second. 26 years. I mean, that's longer than many of us have even been able to vote. This wasn't just a political partnership. For a whole generation, this was Japanese politics. And now, it's gone.
So who exactly were these partners? Well, on one side, you've got the LDP, the big, conservative power that's dominated for ages. And on the other, Komeito, a centrist party that came out of a Buddhist movement, really known for its focus on peace and social welfare. Together, they were this axis of stability, a political machine that honestly seemed unstoppable.
And that right there, that brings us to the central question of this whole thing. Was Komeito walking away a genuinely courageous move to save the soul of Japanese democracy? Or was it a reckless gamble that could throw the country into chaos when it can least afford it? Let's break down both sides of that argument.
Okay, first up, let's look at the case for leaving. The argument that this breakup wasn't just a good idea, it was like a necessary surgery to cut out a disease that was festering deep inside the political system.
The folks who supported this split, they see it as a huge act of political courage. They believe that if they had stayed in the coalition any longer, they would have basically been complicit in a system that was slowly rotting from the inside. So for them, a little short-term pain is absolutely worth the long-term gain of a healthier democracy. Their case really stands on three main pillars. First, putting an end to what they call stable corruption. They felt that after 26 years of trying to fix the LDP's money scandals from the inside, it was just a lost cause. Second, it was about their own identity. Komeito felt like it was losing its own voice, getting drowned out and unable to push for its own policies. And third, something they called shock therapy. The only way, they argued, to get the LDP to actually face its problems was to deliver a shock so big it just couldn't be ignored. But of course, that is only one side of the story. So let's flip it and look at the case against the split. The argument that this was a deeply irresponsible gamble with the entire nation's future on the line. So for this side, high-minded ideals are nice and all, but it's reality that really matters. They see this split as a careless move that puts abstract principles ahead of the country's actual concrete needs. In their view, this whole thing sacrifices the stability Japan desperately needs to solve its most urgent problems.
And their argument also has three key points. First, instability. They say that with a minority government, crucial policies on things like inflation and defense are just going to get stuck in gridlock. Second, effectiveness. I mean, what's the point of having principles if you're stuck in the opposition, with zero power to actually make them law? And third, national security. With everything going on in the world, they argue that showing political disunity sends a really dangerous message of weakness to other countries.
So there you have it, two completely opposite ways of looking at the same event. One is all about principle, the other is all about pragmatism. And this really gets us to the fundamental clash at the heart of this debate.
This is the trade-off, isn't it? There's no easy, clean answer here. Is it better to have a government that's stable, but one you believe is fundamentally corrupt? Or is it better to just blow that whole system up and risk total political chaos, all in the name of reform? It's a question that gets to the very core of what we want from our leaders.
You've basically got two totally different theories on how to create change. The stay camp believed you had to work from the inside, using relationships to nudge your partner in the right direction. The risk? Well, you might just become part of the problem. The leave camp said, look, 26 years proves that's impossible. Their method was external shock therapy. The risk there? You lose your seat at the table and have no influence at all.
All right, so after hearing both sides, where does that leave us? Let's take a look at the formal outcome of this debate and, more importantly, what it tells us about the bigger picture here.
So in the structured debate that this whole explainer is based on, they actually had judges who picked a winner. And their verdict, it went to the affirmative side, the side arguing that leaving the coalition was the right call. They found the argument that, hey, we tried for 26 years and nothing changed to be really, really powerful. But, a verdict in a debate doesn't really end the discussion, does it? Because it just highlights this fundamental tension. On one hand, you have the idea that without political trust, no policy, no matter how good it is, can ever really work.
And on the other, you have the argument that without stability, you can't even begin to solve the urgent real-world problems people are facing.
Now, this whole story might be set in Japan, but this dilemma, this is universal. And it forces us to ask a much bigger question that applies to literally any democratic country, including our own.
Because what this really is, when you strip it all down, is a perfect case study of a timeless challenge for democracy. Every country, at some point, has to choose between keeping the current system stable, even with all its flaws, and embracing the risky, messy, disruptive change that might be needed to protect its core principles.
And that's the big question we're left with. When push comes to shove, what's more essential for the long-term health of a democracy? Is it the stability to actually get things done? Or is it the principles that make that system worth fighting for in the first place? It's a tough question, and there's no easy answer.